Welcome and roll on in to Pedal the Springs podcast, where we banter about all things biking in Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region. My name is Cory Sutela, and I'm your guest host today, sitting in for Torie Giffin. Torie is the self-appointed ambassador for cycling in the Springs and the owner of the Buffalo Lodge Bicycle Resort. And what Torie doesn't know about biking in this area, her friends do. And today we're really pleased to be joined by members of Bike Colorado Springs, who are friends of Torie and the Buffalo Lodge Bicycle Resort. We've got Jerry White, Wes Pritchard, Cully Radvillas, and I'm also a volunteer with Bike Colorado Springs. So we'll get right into it and we'll learn a little bit more about Bike Colorado Springs. Cully, can you give us a bit of background about the formation of Bike Colorado Springs?
Sure. Bike Colorado Springs was formed in 2015. It started with some people that volunteered and worked at Trails and Open Space Coalition with the vision that Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region didn't have a bicycle advocacy organization. So there was a real need to align the individual advocates throughout the city and kind of point them in the same direction so that we're all working towards a common goal and can advocate for something cohesive around the city to make our city a better place. So that started in 2015 with these individual advocates coming together. And then shortly after that, we became a project of the Trails and Open Space Coalition. So for some time, Bike Colorado Springs lived under the Trails and Open Space Coalition as a project of the Trails and Open Space Coalition. Over the years, we discovered that while our missions are very synergistic, there are some differences, and we wanted to have the flexibility to kind of do our own thing as a bike advocacy organization and not be tied directly to Trails and Open Space Coalition's mission. So at that time, I believe, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, that was 2021?
I think so. That's about right.
2021, we split, all still working together, still friendly, but we split from Trails and Open Space Coalition and then had some more autonomy and then became our own 501c3 after that, which now we're our own separate organization.
Yeah. And I just commented being a 501 and a corporation and also having the IRS 501c3 status means that donations to Bike Colorado Springs are, as allowed by law, tax deductible. And we welcome those, and we are entirely funded by donations, an occasional sale of a ball cap, but we are a donation-funded organization.
Additionally, a fully volunteer organization.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, great pitch there. We need donations and more volunteers. Jerry, can you share a little bit about what brought you to the organization and how you fit in with the group?
Well, I've been interested in bicycle advocacy since I moved to Colorado Springs in 1978, and most of my work had been informal, interactions with the city, interactions with different organizations. I was a member of the Colorado Springs Cycling Club, which was a great group, but had a very low advocacy effort. And when I learned about Bike Colorado Springs, I thought this is a great way to get involved, and in a fashion where an organizational leverage might enhance our productivity and our efforts. So rather than being a lone person suggesting and complaining and urging, I was really happy to become part of a much larger organization.
Great. And now you are the chair of the...
I'm the chair of the Advocacy Committee, and we work with the city and other NGOs to advocate for better pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. We also have an interest in pedestrian safety and comfort moving around the city. And so we spent a fair amount of time talking to people in the city, a fair amount of time making suggestions, design changes, urging safer, more effective infrastructure. And we also track infrastructure improvements, good structural projects that are occurring elsewhere in the United States and oftentimes in Europe as well. We're quick to be able to supply pictures and designs that people might find effective.
Yeah, I've really noticed that through the organization, we've got a pretty comprehensive library of diagrams and standards and examples of both good and bad bike infrastructure, and that often is helpful in some of the discussions that we have.
I think so. And we welcome suggestions from bicyclists and pedestrians. If you are out and about town and you say, boy, this was sure a difficult place to transition on my bike or on foot, send us a note. And we're happy to talk to the city and to advocate for a better design and often suggest designs to the city.
Yep, so input's welcome.
Input is welcome. That's right.
And I'll just mention, just to make sure we've got our mission, the mission of Bike Colorado Springs is making bicycling in the Pikes Peak region better for people of all ages and abilities. And we've found that it's generally accepted that good pedestrian infrastructure is also good bike infrastructure, so we are quite often involved with pedestrian access as well.
Exactly. They really go together.
Yep. All right. Well, Wes, let's hear a little bit from you and what brought you into Bike Colorado Springs.
Well, I will tell you, I kind of rediscovered cycling as an adult about 20 years ago. I bought a mountain bike, started riding the New Santa Fe Trail at lunch just for exercise with some coworkers, and I couldn't stop. And
got the bug.
Eventually got a road bike and started cycling all over town. But as I was cycling around town, I would notice things like, this bike lane is weird, or it comes to a stop and doesn't connect to anything here, or we've all kind of seen some of these weirdnesses in our bike infrastructure around town, and so these things would kind of cook in my head. And I was also a member of the Trails and Open Space Coalition, so I was aware when Bike Colorado Springs kind of formed as part of that organization, and then later split off. And had kind of made some attempts to connect at some point, but eventually got fully engaged with the organization and joined Jerry's Advocacy Committee, and to try to work on some of these things that I saw and want to improve in our bike infrastructure.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's been wonderful to have your technical expertise on some of those. Okay, Cully, what got you most interested in Bike Colorado Springs?
Yeah, so I moved to Colorado Springs in 2012. I transferred here from Chicago with SRAM, so a bicycle component manufacturer in Colorado Springs. So very involved in bicycling throughout my life in all ways. Moving from Chicago, there are a lot of big differences. In Chicago, it feels like all advocacy roles are full. Like, you cannot get involved in a way that makes a difference in Chicago because it's such a big city and a big organization, and it's all been well set. In Colorado Springs, when I moved here, there was no bike advocacy organization. Like I said, I moved in 2012, and 2015 is when it formed. And thanks to you, Cory, for dragging me to the first meeting to form Bike Colorado Springs. But I was on that first meeting of the individual advocates where we talked about the need for a bike advocacy organization in the city. And it was incredible to be able to sit at the table and be those first thoughts about the need for an organization pushing for advocacy around bicycling and transportation in our city. And I can see the difference we've made with this organization. It's pretty incredible. The thing I love about Colorado Springs is it's kind of a small town where you can be involved in any level that you want to be and make a big difference in what you want the city to look like. So obviously coming from Chicago, it's a city. It's a real city that the land use is a lot different than Colorado Springs, so you can more easily bike around. So biking was my way to get around Chicago, and when I came here, that didn't change. Biking was my way to get around. One of the biggest things that I saw when I moved here that I didn't expect is how amazing our urban trail network is. And in Chicago, you have to ride on the streets with traffic to get anywhere. That's pretty much the only option. And here, I'm able to take the Pikes Peak Greenway and off-street trails 80% of my commute to my office, which is an incredible benefit.
It's great when it works.
It's great when it works. Unfortunately, not everybody lives in close proximity to a trail and doesn't work in close proximity to a trail. And what we're advocating for in large part is making those connections to trails so you can use the trail as kind of the highway, the bicycle highway, but have those on-street connections that feel safe and comfortable to get to your destination or from where you live.
Yeah, I always think of the greenways as sort of the skeleton of the system, but we need to fill in the rest of the meat around the network.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll share just a little bit about my background. So at the time of when we did decide to form Bike Colorado Springs, I was a volunteer with Medicine Wheel Trail Advocates and also a board member at the Trail and Open Space Coalition. And what I was finding is there were a lot of issues, political issues, and public input processes that related to on-street safety, bike lanes, spending for bike infrastructure. And it wasn't exactly the mission of Medicine Wheel, which is more like the single-track bike advocacy. And it also wasn't exactly the mission of TOSC, which is a little bit more like the urban trail network, but not the on-street stuff. So that was really when we said, look, we need a dedicated initiative that will focus on the on-street safety and those kind of network things and try to pull in a more diverse group of volunteers for that. And so, I think it was about 2015, and I can't remember exactly when we were involved with the Bike Master Plan.
So that started, I believe it was adopted in 2018.
Okay. So it was BCS was around for a couple of years, and we got involved. And so what is the Bike Master Plan, Cully?
So the Bike Master Plan is a document that the city put together that basically outlines a vision for what bicycling should look like in our city in the future. So obviously this was developed a few years ago. It has some good, like I said, vision. So it doesn't give any prescriptive definition of build this bike lane here or very specific recommendations for how to get a more bike-friendly city, but it gives an idea. And one of the ideas that came out of this, which has empowered Bike Colorado Springs to be a organization that I think can really make some connections throughout our region, is it says that Bike Colorado Springs should meet with city traffic engineering on a regular basis. So that's I think one of the biggest wins that we've had as an organization is being able to be at the table with traffic engineering over these last few years, so that we can hear about projects as they come to the table and give input and guidance so that the project is moving in a direction that's safe for all road users.
Yeah, with a range of successes, right?
Range of successes.
We don't always get everything we want,
Yeah.
but I think it is important to point out, the Bike Master Plan actually calls out that this nonprofit organization should meet regularly with city staff in order to try to help direct that. And that has been happening. And I wonder, Jerry, if you could tell us a little bit more about those regular meetings that we have with the city.
We meet on a planned basis once a month with the traffic engineering department. I find those meetings very informative and instructive, and I hope that there's a two-way gain in those discussions. We have a group of volunteers on the Bike Colorado Springs side. We have trained civil engineers on the city side, and on occasion there's a disconnect between our desires and visions, but I'm and I should say we also have trained engineers on the Bike Colorado Springs side as well. But we I think are successful at making it plain to the city people that we have done our homework during these discussions. We are able to bring up in an intelligent and substantive way current civil engineering standards, traffic design standards, recent literature publications in the civil engineering journal sphere that would reflect upon what we would like the city to do. The other thing that we provide, what we bring to the table, is our experience as bicyclists and pedestrians. And to give them credit, the people and the city staff have much of that same experience. But we, among our Bike Colorado Springs people, we have a lot of significant bicycling experience, I think. I mean, I have ridden in probably 50 or 60 different cities around North America and Europe and can bring that experience to bear. I know that everybody else here at the table has thousands of miles of cycling experience in places that are both really good and places that are really problematic. And being able to make those contrasts in discussions with the city engineers, I think, is useful.
I was just going to add, it's really interesting when, to your point about going to other cities, having been involved in advocacy, and you go somewhere else and you see things, you notice things you may not notice otherwise. Even if you're in a car, you say, "Oh, that's an interesting piece of bike infrastructure I haven't seen before," and you can bring those ideas back, and that's what we're trying to do.
And I want to follow up on your point about you see these even when you're in a car. Mm-hmm. One of the principles that we advocate for is that good cycling and good pedestrian infrastructure is good motor vehicle infrastructure as well. Many times I've been in a car, been surrounded by pedestrians and bicyclists in a city and think, boy, this really works. I don't have to be nervous in my car about how I'm going to navigate through this multimodal transportation system at this particular corner.
I really like that point, Jerry. I mean, I think there are sometimes as bike advocates, we get called out for trying to force people to get out of their cars, and that's really not the case. What we are hoping for is that there are safe and convenient options so that if people would choose to, they could take a bike rather than being, as I feel, like trapped in my car today. It's a liberating feeling, and I want to be able to be safe and get there conveniently. So we're not trying to take away anyone's cars or taking away the ability to get around by car, but we want to have more options for people.
Yeah, we're drivers and cyclists, so we see it from both sides.
We are. I'd be happy to talk to you about the new car I just bought, but that's probably not the right thing for today. I'd also like to say, when I see other places, people who I work with or talk to who are in the planning world are quick to say, as when I complain or kvetch, that you have to admit that things are much better in Colorado Springs now than they were previously. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely true. Cully, you've alluded to that.
100%.
But I think that is not the right metric that we should strive for. Better than it used to be is not good enough. And the response I usually make to that is our current situation is that the rate at which we are falling behind has slowed. If you go to other contemporary cities who really focus on quality of life, the changes that they have made in the last 20, 25 years are far more significant than the changes that we have made in the last 20 or 20. Not that there aren't cities that are completely changeless, but I think that we have a 14. We're looking out the window here at a 14,000-foot snow-covered mountain. We attract people to live and to play who would really value contemporary world-class pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, and I think we have an obligation as a city to fulfill that mission.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for that, Jerry. Wes, I know you've been involved directly with that initiative to try to improve some of the bike lane infrastructure. Can you just talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing on that?
Yeah. So the city shared with us a few years ago a bike lane guidance document that they had prepared. And we weren't involved in the original creation of it or providing comments, but we got it later, and we looked at it and saw that there were some items in there that were probably inconsistent with what we saw as best practices. And we do look to these national guidance documents from various organizations to kind of support our positions. But we provided some feedback to the city about their bike lane guidance, and this is what goes to contractors that are redoing streets, repainting bike lanes. And so it's important to get that right so that we get consistent bike lanes painted on our streets as they're redone. And we've seen some positive results of that. There was a recent repaving and restriping of Dublin Boulevard up in the northeast part of town.
Yeah.
And it was taken from just a narrow bike lane on each side of a very wide street to now a full standard width bike lane with a striped buffer next to it, and the lane has been, the automobile lane has been narrowed. So it's a much more rideable bike lane. And then the striping has been also improved in ways that we recommended to make it more compatible for both cyclists and motorists. So,
well, thanks for your work.
We're pretty
on
happy
that.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can look around the city and say, oh, I wish some of our bike lanes were better, but we are making some improvements, and thank you, Wes, and to the whole team for your efforts on that. Well, let's shift a little bit and talk a bit about Bike Colorado Springs' role with culture and encouragement. Can I put you on the spot, Cully, and talk a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing to build up the culture of cycling some more?
So, yeah, as I said, I've been with Bike Colorado Springs for quite some time now, and my role is Communication Committee Chair. The Communication Committee is basically me. So if anybody else out there wants to get involved in helping to spread the word about communication and bicycling throughout the city, please reach out. That goes to any other volunteer role that we have at Bike Colorado Springs. We're always looking to add new volunteers to our organization. Wes is one of our newest board members, so that's a little off topic, but I thought I'd add that.
It's a good reminder.
That we've started to grow the board and hopefully build Bike Colorado Springs into a more sustainable organization that can last the years and be here to advocate for bicycle connectivity, infrastructure, and culture throughout the years. But back to that culture piece, one of the big things that I've been trying to do as communications for Bike Colorado Springs is get the word out on our successes. So we had a lot of great projects complete in 2024 and added some long awaited connectivity to our city. So one of those projects is the northern link of the Legacy Loop.
Right.
And so that's the Rock Island Trail connection from Shook's Run to the Popsicle Bridge at the north end of the Pikes Peak Greenway, so right at Monument Valley Park there. So getting the word out that there are a lot of good projects. Sometimes they take a decade to complete, like this one, because there's a lot of moving pieces in a project like that. The Parks Department has to acquire land, has to solidify grants from, in this case, both federal and state organizations to, as well as local dollars to get this project built. But there were rumblings of it when I moved here, and finally it's now here in 2024.
Yeah, so that's an infrastructure project. And one of the things that we see is, we overall live in a low tax city, and we don't have a lot of extra resources on city staff to do promotional kinds of events or to celebrate some of these successes. And so that's a role that Bike Colorado Springs has stepped into a little bit to try to help get the word out and communicate about about some of the successes.
Most definitely. So we have a pretty good social media following with Instagram and Facebook. We have our website. So those are some great resources to go look at to see what's going on, what's current in our city.
And we'll be sure to put those in the links for the show notes.
Fantastic. And I've been trying to use those resources best possible to get the word out on these new projects and celebrate the successes of them. Another bike lane that was important, I thought, to celebrate was the Vickers bike lane, that new connection in the northeast part of town. There was a bike lane there, but it was a narrow single stripe bike lane on a 4-lane street. So now it's a buffered bike lane. So that's an improvement. And there's a lot of these small improvements that get rolled out by the city with very little fanfare. Sometimes that's by design. The city doesn't necessarily want pushback in some cases. But sometimes that's just a lack of resources from the city and the communication team. They have to put their efforts where they see it makes the most impact. So
yeah, so I guess sometimes they can attract negative attention, but we feel it's really important. We have to celebrate when we are able to make progress.
And if we do enough of these, we continue to do these little things, eventually they rise up to bigger things.
Yeah.
I can think of a few more examples of not too far from here. On Fontenaro Street, there's a crossing on the Shooks Run Trail. A very nice crossing put in recently, but it lacked the sign in the middle that says yield to pedestrian state law. Some of you have probably seen those. And it's actually in the city policy that crossing would have such a sign, but the city staff adamantly declined to put such a sign there. And we continue to lobby for that. And we actually did a traffic study where we measured the percentage of motor vehicles that ignored pedestrians going through that crosswalk. And it was 75% of the motor vehicles who approached the crosswalk when pedestrians or bicyclists were present went right through without stopping.
Breaking the state law.
We presented that information to the city, and they reconsidered, and they put the sign up. Now, it's a small win, but it's something that we can count as an accomplishment.
But it may save a life, too, yeah.
The crash reduction factor, not to get too technical, but the crash reduction factors for those signs measured, published, and is non-trivial, which is why it's in the city standard. But we had trouble getting the sign there. Can I give one more example?
Please
and
do.
That is there's also a trail, and to give credit to the city, their efforts with trail crossings in the last 4 or 5 years has increased dramatically. We're seeing so many more safe and effective trail crossings through roads.
Real credit to the traffic engineering staff and the park staff and their collaboration on those, because that's infrastructure that crosses both departments.
But as you move southward on the Shooks Run Trail and you come to Uinta, there's a crossing that's going in there right now, and almost finished. But the Rock Island Railroad, there was a rail path that continued forward southward towards North Junior High, and the Parks Department had declined to make the trail follow that path. Instead, they were going to move trail users onto a 4-foot wide sidewalk that went up Uinta and then right on El Paso. And we made a fuss about that. Actually, perhaps even used some intemperate language in our meeting. and in fact, that is now a 12-foot wide concrete pathway.
We provided some polite encouragement for some improved infrastructure.
I think we need to continue with these small things because they really start to add up, and they offer the city staff the opportunity to reflect on current best engineering practices.
yeah, and you went exactly where I was going to go as well, talking about trail crossings, because, again, that's another thing that, unless we publicize it, there's very little visibility in the public to. So that Shooks Run Trail crossing is only one of 4 trail crossings that the city improved in this past year. Those have been on the books again for quite some time, and to get them implemented with all the supply chain issues with COVID and everything did take some time, but now most of those crossings are complete. So the other 2 crossings, so these are trail crossings that didn't have any signalized crossing. It was just a crosswalk painted on a road previously. Now, Rock Island Trail at Murray, so that's crossing a 4-lane road, has a very, very nice signal that when I went to check it out, when I got the word that it opened, I went up to it. I didn't even push it, and I got the walk signal to cross. So
magic of technology.
So it looks like that signal is synchronized with the light at Constitution, so that when that light at Constitution turns red, so does the light at the trail, and you automatically get the walk signal without having to push what we lovingly call in the advocacy world the beg button.
Beg button.
So that's
please make it safe.
please give me a walk signal. So that's not the case at all crossings, but the other crossing, speaking of Dublin, is a connection to the neighborhood on the north or on the south side of Dublin to connect to Cottonwood Creek Trail. So Cottonwood Creek Trail is a great east-west trail in the northern part of our city that connects a lot of different neighborhoods. The challenge is there's not many connections to the neighborhoods. Crossing Dublin was a challenge, as Dublin's a 4-lane road, and now that signal is open to connect this sidewalk path to Cottonwood Creek Trail to those neighborhoods just south of Dublin.
Yeah, I was going to correct something I said earlier. I was talking about, I said Dublin was the street they corrected the striping on, but it was Vickers, the same one
Vickers.
you mentioned.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were talking about the same thing. But and you made me think of something else that was in the master plan that the city did implement, and it was the Cottonwood Trail where it crosses Academy Boulevard and then continues on to connect to the Pikes Peak Greenway Trail. So that was a big gap for a long time. You would come down the Cottonwood Trail headed west, you'd hit Academy, the trail just ended. And you had to get on sidewalks and streets. You had to cut over to Dublin and continue on to eventually get to the Greenway Trail. And now we've got this beautiful trail that follows Cottonwood Creek all the way down. So that credit to the city for completing that chunk that was in the master plan.
Yeah, well done on that. And so some things to celebrate. It doesn't always work out, and I wanted to talk about another initiative that Bike Colorado Springs has been involved in, and that's the Ghost Bike program. So Wes, can you tell us a little bit, what's a Ghost Bike and how is Bike Colorado Springs involved with that?
Well, if you don't know what a Ghost Bike is, and my mom asked me this question, what is a ghost bike, when she heard I had gotten involved in it. So a ghost bike is it's a bicycle painted white, put up on a street typically somewhere to mark a tragic situation involving a cyclist, usually a death or severe injury. And we put it up. We usually hang a placard on it to indicate who was involved, what happened, and it serves 2 primary purposes. One, it memorializes the tragedy that happened at that location, but it also provides a reminder to passersby of what happened, and maybe to become more aware of cyclists and or pedestrians, and to be more careful. And so we've had a situation recently where we put up a ghost bike. It was a very tragic situation on December 29th. Michael Pompa was struck twice by hit-and-run drivers within a few minutes of each other at
Two separate
night.
hit-and-runs.
2 separate hit-and-runs, 2 separate drivers, and 2 separate vehicles. To the credit to our police department, detectives tracked down both drivers. They're both in the court system. Actually, one has pleaded guilty already. The other one's still in the court system. But we put up a ghost bike in that area to mark that tragedy. And
Well, it's a sad situation, but it's an important thing that we can do to try to bring attention to that. So, again, grateful for your work on that, Wes. Well, let's turn it to some more positive and proactive things. And Cully, I know you've been involved in pushing out some information about the upcoming election. So we're recording now in March of 2025, and we've got an election that's just about to finalize here on, it's April 1st, I believe, is the date.
City Council.
The City Council election. So can you just mention a little bit about how BCS has been involved with that?
Yeah, so over the years, we've put out candidate questionnaires to get to understand the positions of different candidates on issues surrounding bicycling, around transportation in the city, around land use in general, and how we can make the city a more walkable and bikeable place, and how their vision for the city can get us there. So I put out questions this year around support for active transportation, so infrastructure improvements like we've been talking about here. There was a question about trail safety and homelessness. So one of the big issues is the unhoused population, and how one of the only options for them to survive in our city is on our trail network, and that discourages a lot of people who would be trail users from using our urban trail network. So
yeah, frankly, makes it unsafe sometimes, and people choose not to use it for that reason.
It does, and we talked about the Parks Master Plan, and there's a new Parks Master Plan process that's going to be kicked off this year. So that would guide our urban trails and all sorts of different details of our parks in large ways. And then Vision Zero. So that's the push for a policy that aims to have zero traffic fatalities in our city, a policy that isn't currently in place today, but ask them if they would support such a policy. So,
yeah, and the idea with Vision Zero is all traffic fatalities are preventable and primarily can be done through better infrastructure. And so how do we improve the infrastructure to eliminate the possibility of human error?
And just for a little bit of background, the city did receive a Safe Streets for All grant to put a safety plan in place. So that could be the structure of a Vision Zero policy. We'll see what that comes out to.
Is that money in the bank?
Apparently, that's money in the bank. We'll see.
That is a federal funding source.
That's a federal funding source. So that one started a year or two ago. So I think that one's safe. Some other projects from federal funds may not be quite as safe. So we'll see how that. But these responses are up on the full questions, and these responses are up on our website right now. So take a look, see how these candidates responded, and we're just trying. We're not endorsing any candidate. We're a 501c3, so we cannot make any endorsements. We're just providing this information and giving you a little bit more knowledge about their positions on certain topics so that you can make an informed decision and be an informed voter to vote for what matters to you.
Yeah, so if you haven't completed your vote yet when you're listening to this, or really at any time in the future, we do this with every election. So there will be candidate surveys and candidates information on our website at bikeColoradosprings.org, basically to help people understand what the position that different candidates have.
And as chair of the Advocacy Committee, I would also urge everyone to remember that the time for influence of this type is not just during elections. During the year, if you have a question or comment or issue about bicycling or pedestrian safety and infrastructure, contact your city council person, send them an email. And as those emails pile up in their mailbox about issues that are going to come before city council, they take heed. They take heed.
That's a good point. And also remember that Bike Colorado Springs is here to help amplify your voice. So if you've got an idea, reach out to your city council people and also reach out to us.
Great thought.
Okay, well, I'm going to give a little bit of a highlight of some other activities. We don't have another one of our volunteers with us today is Joan Stang, and she's been really involved over many years in developing educational material and sharing that with people in our community. So some of there's really four main areas that Bike Colorado Springs has with our education programs, and I can't thank Joan enough for the work that she does on this. So we work on a bike-friendly driver program, and so there are 2 free online resources for that. There's a digitized bike-friendly driver training program that's available through the League of American Bicyclists. And there's also the Bicycle Colorado Shift program, the driver's education program. So that's training drivers to be attentive and to understand what bicyclists are likely to do. And then there's also an auto-friendly cyclist, which as cyclists, I think sometimes that's maybe something we should think about is how can we ride our bikes in ways that are predictable, don't cause anxiety and stress for drivers, and, to improve safety through our behavior as cyclists. And it's not always intuitive. A third area that we are involved in is ride leader training. So that's training people to be ride leaders and take out group rides. And I know that there's been many, many of those trainings through our programs.
There's one coming up for that in the near future as well. So
in early May of 2025.
Yeah, so please, if you are interested in or are already a ride leader and want more training on how to be an effective ride leader, please look that up, because we do this once or twice a year. So this is your opportunity to participate and get this training if it's something you're
Absolutely.
interested in.
So that's coming up in May of 2025. And as there's interest, we will continue to have those. And so those were 3, and the fourth one that we are involved in is the Cycling Basics 1-on-1, and so that's sort of how to learn to ride a bicycle for adults. And we've had amazing success in delivering some training to Mountain Metro Transit, the Olympic and Paralympic committees, Pikes Peak Library District. The entire fleet has had some training. Manitou Public Works, El Paso County Public Works. We've been working with Colorado Springs Police Department and the Manitou Springs Police Department. So a lot of these government agencies, we've had some success with getting some of this training through, and really and also to bike clubs and other organizations throughout the city. So again, great work by Joan on that.
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize, if you're listening to this and you were a business owner or work in a business where there are a lot of people driving cars and trucks as part of the business, Joan will be happy to do what she's done for many city organizations and put on a course to train your drivers in these safety issues. Who knows, it might get you something on your insurance bill and certainly save a lot of headache for accident prevention. It's a really valuable program that Joan and Bike Colorado Springs provides.
Yep. Okay, well, there's, I think, one more thing I'd like to jump into a bit, and that's the League of American Bicyclists Bike-Friendly City designation. What's that all about, Cully?
Yes, the Bicycle-Friendly Community designation is something that the League of American Bicyclists provides on a regular basis after the city applies for it. So for the last couple cycles, Colorado Springs has been ranked a silver city, and in 2025 we will reapply. The city will reapply, not by Colorado Springs. This is a city initiative, so the city will reapply. The city has some resources that they brought online to help this application. So we've for a long time in this discussion talked about how the city has improved over the years, and I'm not sure if we're going to get to a gold status.
One day we will.
One day we will, and that's one of the things that some of these resources that were brought on for this application will hopefully identify. So we talked about the bike master plan, and now we're talking about bike-friendly community. So these people that are helping apply for this will also help us identify how we can get to gold, and that may also possibly lead to how the bike master plan can be updated to possibly be more prescriptive in the future and define how our city improves in a more, maybe a little bit more meaningful way and more methodical way on bicycle infrastructure and bicycle connectivity throughout our city.
So that effort's ongoing now. It's supported by the city and also with the consultants, as Cully mentioned. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, again, we'll have some information on the Bike Colorado Springs website about that.
Yeah, we're looking for information from bike clubs and groups that have been putting on rides. So the more we can classify and communicate to the League of American Bicyclists, the better chance we have of getting a higher ranking for communicating what the actual culture of cycling is in our city. So the more we can capture those things that may not be official city activities, the better.
Yeah, it's a great way to bring together all the cyclists from around the city on this effort. So we're looking forward to speaking with a lot of the people listening to this podcast about that. All right, well, we're getting close to our time here. Is there anything else that we should mention before we go?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the really important things that we do. I would, again, make a plea for folks, if you're interested in pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure and you think you'd like to help out in some way, take a look on Facebook. Or, Cully, how would people who wanted to reach out to us, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways. So reach out through our social medias. So Instagram or Facebook, you can send us an instant message, a private message on those, or info@bikecoloradosprings.org. We'll send an email to this whole group, actually. So easy way to get in contact with us if you want to be involved.
And I was just going to add to that, as kind of the newbie on the group here, I would want to encourage other people to join our modest organization, and it's been a lot of fun working with such smart, committed people, and I think others will enjoy that as well.
Very kind.
Yeah, and one last note. I'll throw it in at the last minute. There have been updates to the e-bike policy, so we won't get into much detail now, but please check our website. So the e-bike policy throughout the city parks system has been updated through an ordinance change. So, and that also brings up, Jerry said, writing letters to city council and getting involved with Bike Colorado Springs is a great way to make a change and have your voice heard. Another way is to actually speak at city council meetings if you have the time to dedicate to that. But getting your voice heard is a great way, whether with our organization as an individual or through email.
Good wrap-up point there. Okay, well, really grateful. Jerry, Wes, and Cully from Bike Colorado Springs, thanks very much for joining us today. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us here on Pedal the Springs on Studio 809 Podcasts. Pedal the Springs is brought to you by the Buffalo Lodge Bicycle Resort, the only bicycle-themed lodging and must-stay for cyclists coming to Colorado. Check out Buffalo Lodge at bicycleresort.com for more information. And please check the show notes for this episode for links to the items that we mentioned. And if you hit the subscribe button now, that helps people find the podcast and get more visibility that way. And be sure to check out some of the other great podcasts on studio809podcasts.com. Studio 809 is your local voice for the Pikes Peak region, and Pedal the Springs podcast is produced by Studio 809 and recorded at the Next Us, a professional cooperative environment for small businesses in downtown Colorado Springs. So thank you very much.
Happy to be here.
Folks,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Enjoyed it.